Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar series on how we enhance citizen and employee experience using AI and advanced digital technologies. My name is Saurabh Kumar. I'm the CEO of Resolve.ai, and I'm fortunate to be hosting Ephraim and Jackie, who represent the city of Dublin and the city of Folsom, respectively. We have an amazing wealth of experience between them, and we'll talk about how they leverage AI to change citizen and employee service within their cities and how they went about doing it. So, without much further ado, let me introduce the panel. I'll start with Jackie. Jackie is the Director of Park and Community Services in the city of Dublin, which is in the East Bay within the San Francisco Bay Area. It's one of the fastest growing cities in California for multiple years. And I will let Jackie introduce herself.
Hi, thank you for having me. I've been working in Parks and Community Services in one way or another since I was 16 years old. I took a brief stint away from municipal public service to join the United States Navy. And then after that, I was in the Bay Area working in Brentwood. And then I took a short 3-year stint over to the East Coast where I worked for the borough of Gettysburg. Only lasted 3 years in the weather and came straight back to California and went to Stanislaus County, where we served a population of 500,000 people, and then landed in the city of Dublin about 2 years ago. So I'm excited to be here and happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Jackie. I will introduce Ephraim. Ephraim runs the information technology team at the city of Folsom, which is about 30 minutes north and east of the Sacramento region. He brings a wealth of experience within technology and internal employee support within city operations. We're very fortunate to have him on the panel as well. Ephraim, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ephraim Richardson. I've been working with the city of Folsom for the past 28 years. I started as an IT technician and then worked my way. I served a stint in the Air Force as a flight medic. I was deployed during Desert Storm. That took me into an area where I kind of thought about having a medical career. When I came out of the Air Force, I went into emergency medicine. Thought I was going to take a path to physician's assistant. One day got stuck by a needle and decided, hey, I like computers a lot more. So that's when I started my path into IT, and that included working with Comcast, Xfinity, in their networking department here in Sacramento. And that's kind of what.
Introduction. I love how you said the comforting hum of computers. Believe me, I can relate to that. We have a very interesting agenda today. We'll start by looking at some trends within how the expectations of the citizens and the residents and the employees is changing. We'll talk about some of the opportunities to leverage AI to change that. We'll look at some of the specific challenges and opportunities that exist and how we can transform them using AI. And then most importantly, we'll learn from the experience of our panel here in how they went about defining what the vision was, what to implement, how to implement, what happens after implementation, right? What are the learnings? Eventually, the goal of the agenda is that everyone here walks away with some ideas, on how you could learn from their experience and do something similar or relevant within your own organization. So let me kick us off by just a couple key trends. So we and I personally work with a lot of cities. A few things that, in our experience, make city and how it services its residents or employees unique, and for that matter, any agency, whether it's a transit agency or other forms of local community government, there's a change in resident expectation, right? I think the residents expect their cities to deliver more of an on-demand Netflix experience, not the blockbuster experience that some of us who are old enough to remember used to be. There was a time when you would drive up to the city hall and fill out a form and do certain things. Increasingly, people want the experience to be much as they're used to when they deal with an Amazon or Uber or any other digital native organization in their life. And the cities not only have to respond to that, but also do it with the intent that there's not limitless amount of money and budget that you can spend on these things. You have to prioritize and realize how to prevent issues, not just respond to them. So there's a lot of real practical boundaries and constraints that we all operate in while trying to deliver the best possible experience. So just some industry data. Gartner recently did a survey of technology executives in the government space, and they said 25% of the governments are looking to employ generative AI to better improve their operations or deliver better service. Obviously, our panel here has already done it, so they are well in that 25%, and we'll talk about their experience. BCG has similar predictions on the size of that market over the coming 7 or 8 years. Just one other kind of thought, and then we'll dive into the discussion, is how does generative AI support what the local governments are trying to do? I think it breaks down, at least from my perspective, into three key categories. One is how you augment your people being the staff of the city, or maybe even outside vendors, etc., that support the city. Is you give them better tools to make better decisions, you reduce the administrative burden, you improve how they can service. There's a lot of opportunity to think of technology as augmenting the ability of employees who are providing this type of work to the citizens or to other employees within the agency or city or district. The second way I think we think about this is knowledge augmentation. There's pretty much every client that we've ever worked with, they have too much knowledge, not too little knowledge, right? And I think what I mean by that is there's documents, intranet sites, public websites, multiple versions of these documents, and you need some way to manage and systematically deliver it to either people outside the organization or even to employees inside the organization, right? This could be something as simple as maybe how to access the services of the city or what the policies are, right? Or something more complex. It doesn't matter, but the reality is it's just hard to find, and there's technology. Technology now enables us to do it very differently than how it was done in the past, and again, we'll talk a little bit about that in the panel and their experience. And then the last way is to just change the experience. I think we were just talking about how you engage your residents or your employees with more personalized communication, with more transparency in what's going on, status of things. There's lots you can do to change that experience to be, as I said, more a consumer-grade experience. And I think these three ways of augmenting your own people, changing the experience, and better leveraging knowledge really form the pillars of how you use generative AI to transform internal services or external services within the city or district or agency. So without much further ado, I will dive right into our discussion for the day. And I will, Ephraim, if you don't mind, I will start out with you and ask you about, I know you've implemented generative AI within your internal IT organization. Maybe if you could talk about what led you there, what were some of the problems you were trying to solve for? And then Jackie, I'll come in. I know Dublin does it more for residents, so I'll come to you for that same question with that external perspective in mind.
Yeah, of course. In our instance, we wanted a solution to be able to track all of our trouble calls and provide services for to make sure that they were keeping us accountable for what we were doing, and to also allow them the ability to track where their trouble ticket was, or where their situation or issue was at. So I wanted something that was a little more engaging, because I'm the kind of person where it's like, if you're having to fill out forms all the time and it's just a static page, that's kind of boring to me. So I wanted something that was a little bit, I guess, fun. So that way, even though you're filling out a trouble ticket, it's still something fun and you can interact with. So that's when we came across Resolve. And my first question was, does it integrate with Teams? And that was yes. I was like, great, because that's the direction that we're going. So we started working with Resolve, and came up with a game plan on how we were going to implement this. And they customized all the options that we needed, the way we wanted it to run in our organization. And that included telephone. So if someone called the help desk, they left a message, that would get put into a ticket. If they sent an email, that would get put into a ticket. And then if they just wanted to go online into Teams, they had that option as well to bring up the bot, um, tell the bot what it wanted, if you're reporting an issue, or if you want to make some kind of a statement or compliment, then they were able to do that. And it was something that our internal customers liked a lot. They could also go back in and check on the status of those tickets and where it was at and what was taking place. And then after the ticket was closed, that would be put into a knowledge base. So then the internal customer could actually tap into that knowledge base if they had an issue later, and maybe someone else had the same issue and they could solve it themselves. So Resolve helped us go through that process, and it was really easy. It didn't take a lot of time. The implementation did not take up. Surprisingly, it was just easy. That's kind of what I want to say. But so far we like it. Now we've actually started branching out into our finance department, because they wanted the ability to have a knowledge base for their employees in finance to look up how to cancel a check, how to receive something from the bank, because there are new employees that were coming on board. So now we're in that process of developing that side of our help bot to address those issues.
Thank you. I think you beautifully touched upon some of the things I think we're going to discuss as well, on how knowledge is used, how you create more transparency in the communication, how you systematize all of that. So that's a great story. Jackie, I know you're on the other side, which is on how you support the residents and citizens of the city. As I said, Dublin's a very, very fast growing city. Would love to hear what were some of the problems or opportunities you were thinking about, on how do you, how did you come about this?
Sure. So we had kind of a multi-prong issue, or as you stated, opportunity. It was really important to our city council that there be essentially a 24/7 city hall. And of course, that doesn't mean having city employees available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but that they were able to access, customers were able to access information at their leisure and when they had the opportunity. And one of the problems that we ran into, as most municipalities have, is we have to put all this information online so that it's accessible to our customers, was that our website became incredibly dense and difficult to navigate. And unless you were aware specifically of what you were looking for in instances, it was really hard to utilize, which was then increasing the communication efforts between our administrative staff and residents of Dublin. And again, we're only here from 8 to 5. So this acts as more of a tour guide for our website. It's easy to add into or type into the chat bot what it is you're looking for, and the AI will pull up those relevant articles, or point you in the right direction, or just give you basic information. So that has become incredibly helpful because, if you're looking for a permit, you don't necessarily know which form number to type in to get the specific results into the generalized search engine on our website. But the AI chatbot can walk our customers through with a little bit more ease and point them in the right direction. And then also, if you're not able to get the request that you want, or it's not taking you in the right direction, it will send us a ticket so that someone can actually follow up with you. And the other thing that we have access to is live chat feature. So customers can log on just as they would with Xfinity or an airline company or whoever, and talk to us via text on our chatbot feature, which is really nice. Especially, there's about 8 different languages utilized in Dublin, and this has an ease of access for that. People can speak in the language that they're comfortable with, and our administrators can speak to them in the language they're comfortable with, and the chatbot will translate that for them. So that has become incredibly helpful. And additionally, it also it has added to, when we do get phone calls now, we're able to take our time with them. Our customers that actually call in tend to have a little bit more complicated of an issue, that our staff can actually take the time and have those more lengthy and detailed focused conversations. We also offer, over 3,000 classes in my department for the city. So this is also an ease of access to look up, times for our community center, for our aquatics facility, to look up information on renting picnic shelters and parks. And it's a fantastic tour guide for the community. And it allows us, much like Ephraim touched on, we can build knowledge bases off of that, as the AI is able to identify questions or concerns that customers have that it wasn't able to answer off the bat. We can go back in then and put information into the knowledge base so that the customers can access that the next time around.
Thank you. I think that's so amazing to hear, right? I think when we don't need services frequently from our whether it's our city or county, but when we need it, we're usually lost. I think we've all experienced that, and what you described was a wonderful shift in the experience of the resident or whoever's looking for services, to have a guide that can help them navigate content on the website or other information around classes and so on. And your channel is the public website, and Ephraim touched upon Microsoft Teams as the channel. So this ability to help people in whatever channel they're makes a ton of sense. And thank you for sharing that. I'll by the way, if there's questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Time permitting, we will take them up at the end of the discussion. So I think we briefly touched upon this, and I'll share kind of a little bit of this in more detail. But the kind of for the next part of the discussion, we wanted to talk about what was the specifics of the scope. I think both Ephraim and Jackie touched already a little bit on what was the scope they implemented within their cities. How did they select a product? What was important to them? How did they go about implementing it? Are there any things to watch for or manage after you initially launch? And then potentially what future plans they might have. So with that, I will. There's an interesting question on how can small cities with limited budget start implementing this, and maybe I'll take that one before I jump into this. I think you'll be surprised at how affordable some of the technology is. So happy to get into the specifics. If you can message us offline, I will be able to take it. But let's say it's in. Not to give out a specific number, it's extremely affordable to do it. And both Ephraim and Jackie, you can chime in if you want to. I don't know what the overall cost look from your perspective, but from my perspective, I think the technology is very affordable even for a small or a mid-sized city.
I would absolutely agree. That was one of our first questions as well, is how expensive is it? Because you can look at many products, and the first thing, yeah, everything looks good, all the bells and whistles. But then when it gets down to it, if you're a small city and the budgets are tight, or even big cities and their budgets are tight, you need to maximize that dollar. And we were able to do that with Resolve. It was actually really affordable. for what we wanted to do. So
I'll second that. We actually went through the process and met with 5 different firms before settling with Resolve. And each one, yes, had all the bells and whistles, and I mean, not a lot of it is applicable to municipalities either, though, which is something to keep in mind. Municipalities are a very niche area, and we don't necessarily need all of the amenities that all of these companies handle, but they were well over, each one we talked to was well over $100,000. And that's just not something that our city was going to invest in this type of technology. And Resolve was a fraction of that cost. So it made the decision really easy. It took the financial aspect out of it, and we got to focus on improving the community interaction with our employees.
one thing we
Thanks.
found out as well, one thing we found out with other products, they gave us the bells and whistles, but a lot of times you had to develop on the back end. So you either had to have that development in-house, or you would have to go outside to get someone to come in and help you code that. So what we found was your product was very easy. There was no coding that we had to do. The most difficult thing I had to do was log into my my tenant, give out permissions, maybe set up a single sign-on or something like that. And that's about the extent of it. So it was really easy.
Thank you. And I will tell you, as the one of the co-founders of the company, we really do believe in affordability. I think that is how we make this technology accessible. It is important to me on a very personal level. So thank you for sharing your experience with that. I'll just, for those of you who have not seen, what I have up here is a bot open on the City of Dublin's website. Probably the PowerPoint does not do best justice to how it looks, but Jackie, maybe you can talk about how it looks on the website and kind of what the functionality. You've already talked through the functionality, but just it is available on the public website. For those of you who want to try it, just feel free to go to the Dublin website and ask questions. Just don't create tickets for the city to get them. They're busy people, but you can try it out. You can ask questions like, what are the parks the city has, or what hours the office operates in, or who's the mayor, or things like that. You should be able to get answers to all of those types of questions.
Ours also gives as soon as you log in and asks if you want to speak to, or not log in, as soon as you click on the small icon at the bottom, which just looks like a text box, it asks if you want to speak with a live agent, and that option isn't available. We get this question a lot. If we got to set office hours on it, so if there's no live agent available at that time because it's outside of our office hours, it'll just ask if they want to send a ticket in, and that goes to our general mailbox, which we're able to answer in the morning. And there's a tracking system for that. That's separate. So we do have administrative access also. We can log in and see what our senior office assistants or office assistants are discussing with the public, and the things that they're talking to them about. You have the ability to create canned answers. So, we get oftentimes, what are the hours of the wave, which is our aquatics complex. And if there's a bit of nuance to that, because they vary at different times of the year. And if it's not popping up correctly, we have canned answers for that we can give out. Same thing with, what are we allowed to hang in our picnic shelters? You can create answers for all those things, and you can customize it to fit your specific city and need. So that's one of the nice things about it. I will say there is only one downfall. There is a little bit of lag time for the chat bot opening down at the bottom for you to see it, but that is not on Resolve's end. That is on Civic Plus, which is they host our website, and we're trying to work through that with them. So I just wanted everyone to be aware in case they go onto our website to try and find it. It takes about 3 seconds for it to pop up at the bottom.
Cool. Thanks, Jackie. And I think there was a question from someone on how do we make sure that the information is accessible and equitable. And I think it's important to realize that the bot only answers information that is already on the website or has been put in as a specific knowledge content within it. So the intention of the bot is to not make up answers or not to answer something differently than what the city would have provided as information anyways. I will Ephraim, if you can talk about how you use it in Microsoft Teams and what that experience looks like.
Well, this is um, Microsoft Teams or a shot of Microsoft Teams. And when you go into the help desk bot, you'll come up with this. It actually greets you, knows your name, obviously, by your login, and it asks you these questions. You could ask the question, open a ticket, check the ticket status, or additional request. And those additional requests, we have that move into a hardware request or a network access request, depending on what system they want access to, what hardware they need, and those requests go through us, and we have to approve those. And then their manager or supervisor, excuse me, would also approve those, and that goes all through the help desk system um, in order for us to keep track of everything that's going on within the city. So it's helped us a lot. Before we had issues where the technicians are always busy and the analysts are always busy. So for them to sit down and actually enter in this stuff, we always had problems with that. No one wanted to do it because they didn't have time. So this saves us a lot of time because they don't have to input the information. Everything is done by the customer. And then when we go in and put I guess the conclusion or the fix, it's just a quick blurb. Did this is okay, person's okay. Then they get an email stating, okay, your problem is solved. You should be good to go. So it's helped us immensely with just our workflow and keeping the analysts busy doing what they're doing, the technicians what they're doing, and it's worked out perfectly so far. So we're pretty happy.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll relate to the idea of using Microsoft Teams for internal questions and support. We use everything in it, and we also do other channels like Slack and so on, but Teams is pretty dominant within the municipality space. Almost every client that I've interacted with uses Teams, and to be able to deliver your entire help desk, whether it's IT or HR or finance or facilities within that is really transformative for the employees of the municipality. So let me run through a couple other quick things. You can also do email. This is an example of an email response. I think, Ephraim, I think you touched upon this as well, that I think an email comes in. This is not an actual email. This is just a demo example. But when someone sends an email to a mailbox, whether it's a resident or or an internal employee, you have the opportunity to create a service request out of it. You also have the opportunity to give a generative AI response out of it, right? So you can send that first. If someone just send an email saying, "Hey, what are the office hours for the city?" You can create an automated response to them with the answer to that specific question. Or you can just create a ticket, like as Jackie said, when people come in the morning, they can look at it and they can respond. So monitored mailboxes are another way to expand the portfolio of services that you're able to offer. Knowledge management, I know, Jackie, you and Ephraim both use it. I think you touched upon this, but I will explain and feel free to jump in. This is by default, the bot can use knowledge that you already have, which is your website, your SharePoint site, your documents, things like that. Now, often you want a very specific answer to something that maybe is just not in those documents, or it's there, but you wanted it presented differently. You can put those knowledge articles within the bot itself and give very precise, very specific answers. You can even mark them scripted answers, in which case they are given verbatim. Let's say you have a very specific policy around something that you want it to be coded in its entirety in a very specific way. So you have the opportunity to reuse existing knowledge or just create new knowledge for the purpose of this. But usually most people will do both. You will leverage what you already have, and then you augment some knowledge using the bot, right? Jackie, Ephraim, I don't know if you would want to add anything to your knowledge management experience.
I know it's been very helpful, especially for our planning department, just because they do have much more complicated answers, and with consistent laws that change in California in regards to building and zoning and all of these things, it's sometimes quicker to update it in the knowledge base. And it's really helpful too when you can see. So every time someone has an interaction with ours is called Clover. You get to name it yourselves, and it's very on brand for Dublin. We name everything, Irish. But if they say they were unsatisfied, we can go back and look at that answer, and we're able to figure out and isolate where the issue was, and we can add that into the knowledge base, so that if someone asks that specific question again, it's able to access it with greater ease if it can't necessarily discern by just scraping our web pages. So it is helpful, especially when you have more complicated issues, depending on how much you want to be available to the public, or if some of those conversations need to be had over the phone or in person, because they are complicated, and it's a whole lineage of yes and no answers. Then you can also tell it that to contact the office or to submit a ticket, and someone will contact them. So it is really helpful, and it is really customizable depending on what your organization's needs are.
Yeah, and I
Thank
would
you.
agree with Jackie on that as well. We have not gone into that a lot, so we're just starting that experience, and especially with our finance department and the knowledge base for their internal employees. Like I stated before, asking those questions about how to cancel a check, how to do a certain process. We also like the ability where we were able to lock down the bot to where it wouldn't access any information outside of our system as far as finance is concerned, because we didn't want just arbitrary information coming in from wherever. On the help desk side, I kind of opened that up because I wanted to be a little bit entertaining as well. And Anuba helped us with our implementation. So you can ask him when he's like, yeah, it's on there. You can ask it anything. I was asking everything. He's like, just test it. Okay, what's a cupcake recipe? Boom, it popped up. How long does it take to fly to the moon at, speed of light? And all those questions came through there. Stupid stuff, but it's more entertaining because I want our internal customers to have a place if they do have a question of um, how do you do whatever, or if it's just an everyday thing that they want to see. I wanted them to have that ability to do it. So it's been kind of fun. They've enjoyed
Cool.
it.
Yeah, and by the way, I will to add to what Ephraim and Jackie said, I think this is very configurable, so you can make it as formal and as tight as you want, or you can give it more of a personality, let it answer some of these small talk questions as we call them, what Ephraim was describing. So this is all configurable. Which sources it answers from, what personalities that, how detailed the answers are, all configurable. And one feature plug I will say is explainability. This is really important in AI. Is when you give an answer, you should be able to explain where that answer came from. So we always cite sources, but in an upcoming release, we can actually internally to people like Ephraim and Jackie, we can actually show this document and this document were found. We preferred this for this reason. This is how the answer came about. So that value chain of some document to an answer that the bot gave would be very visually available to look at and to troubleshoot, right? If you didn't like the answer, you at least know where it came from and why it came that way. Ticketing, I think everyone talked about this a lot. This is at the core of, if the bot does not able to help the user, how do you drop it to a ticket? Both, in whether you're supporting residents or internal employees in IT or HR. At the end of the day, a ticket allows you to track and manage that work request in a systematic, consistent, service level driven way. There's lots of features around this, which I will not talk about today, but the intention is anything that the bot does not answer, you drop into a ticket, someone responds to it the next day or next morning, whatever is applicable. We did have a couple of questions before I go into kind of summarizing this, which is what kind of someone was looking for the city website, so we'll certainly send it to you after the webinar. There was a question on how much training did your employees need or did people need around this? I don't know if one of you wants to respond to that.
So there's different bands of training, and that depends on what their permissions are. So the people who were responsible for live chat features, and that's really all they're going to be accessing. It didn't take a ton of time. I think there was 2 or 3 30-minute trainings to just kind of familiarize themselves with the system. If they're in a supervisory role, which means they can access more of the input and, change the knowledge base and put in some regular questions. It took about the same, but Resolve really honed in on who was responsible for what and assisted with training in that way. The largest part of training actually took place with when we were doing our probing questions to the bot before it went live. We had access to it internally for about 3 months, where different department personnel were asking questions that we typically encounter from our customer base to see how the bot would respond. And we created spreadsheets to send back to Resolve as far as, no, that's incorrect, this is where it should be looking, to really help formulate a good base before it was released to the public. Because as most people know, you really only get one opportunity to get people to use things, and if they don't find it helpful, they'll move on and never use it again. So we went through asking it hundreds of questions to make sure that its knowledge base was solidified before we released it. And by doing that and asking the bot questions, it really gave our staff the amount of training that they needed to be able to utilize it in the future. And then just day to day with live chat interactions and then ticket requests that come in overnight, it really is intuitive and user friendly for us. We're just getting into the internal operations that City of Folsom and Ephraim currently utilize. It's going to become our ticketing software. So I can't really speak on that. I will let him, but the training involved in it, as far as a software integration, was probably one of the least I've experienced, just in terms of intensity and length and confusion. So it really was pretty intuitive.
Yeah, the training for our customers, there really wasn't much. We sent out a couple of notices beforehand saying, hey, this is coming. It's going to be a new AI bot. You're going to be able to ask questions. You're going to be able to input your own tickets. And then when we made that available to them, it was very easy, as you saw on that on the screenshot. It's just, it asks you those simple questions. Do you want it to, report an issue or whatever? It was very easy for them just to click on a button and it walks them through that whole process. So they actually use it. And we've had products before, kind of like what Jackie's saying, you have that one chance to get people to try to use something. And before the process was complicated and no one really used it. So, but this one they use. I see tickets come across my desk all the time, every day. So it's actually nice.
Thank you both. Just a few more things on for the audience here on what might make a product selection criteria. I think we kind of touched upon a couple of these in the conversation already. We talked about cost and how it's important to focus on whether it's worth your investment, something very important to us. We talked about ease of integration and training. So the fact that it integrates with other systems, whether it's Microsoft Active Directory or whatever. We talked about compatibility with channels like Microsoft Teams, website. We talked about the fact that the AI needs to do what it promises, right? If the promise is we can answer questions intelligently, then that promise needs to be delivered. Obviously, all of this needs to be friendly for the user and secure, and security would be SOC 2, GDPR, HIPAA, both privacy and security compliance. Very important in this space because you're at the end of the day in a business that has that runs on trust, right? So anything, Jackie or Ephraim, you would like to add to what was important to you when you were thinking, and then I wanted to just run into any implementation or post-launch experiences that you would want to share with people.
You basically hit on everything that we were kind of looking for. Our top priority was integration with Teams, because that's where we're going to be pushing all of our users into. We kind of want one single area where they can do all of their work, and so they don't have to move from that one screen. So they're able to do all that from there. And then cost, of course, it's always cost. It's always the dollars. So
Cool. Um, Before I jump in, there were two other questions I think we should talk about. Is one, someone was asking how much language model training was needed and how do you avoid hallucinations? I think those are things that we don't need to do because it's a RAG architecture. We don't need to do LLM training. It works on existing content without needing fine-tuning or training. Happy to take that offline. Feel free to reach out to me. We can have a deeper discussion on it. As well as how to avoid hallucinations, very important. While we're able to answer, small thought type questions, we do not answer anything outside the knowledge that is provided within the confines of, the whatever the city or the municipality has, or for that matter, any client that we work with. We do not make up answers. That's again a product feature that we've implemented through both RAG architecture, prompt engineering. There's a lot of technology that goes into it. In the interest of time, I'll happy to talk about it offline, but it's something that we obviously have to pay very close attention to. I think you both talked about this already, so I'm not going to get into kind of what your implementation experience was. Maybe any advice you would have for the audience on how to implement any gotchas or lessons that you had from either one of your implementations.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it really was it was easy
Yeah, it
than
was
anything.
easy. It's
I'm trying to think of something to like warn people about or to think about more carefully, but there just really isn't anything, especially considering the price. It's only added to our, toolbox of ways to interact with the public and with greater ease. I mean, this is the way the industry is going. It's the way our world's going. So you may as well
yeah,
adopt it early and get people used to it than wait. I don't have any warnings or anything for anyone.
yeah. One thing that I might add is I had our process improvement specialist go out and just talk to people and ask them if you were going to use a ticketing system, what would you like to see? So she went around and took all those parameters down, what people were telling her, and then we kind of like implemented that into the system. And your staff were great, so it was easy. It was really easy. So
Yeah,
Cool.
well, actually, I do have one thing I would recommend. If you're gonna do it citywide. If you're gonna use it for
yeah,
customer interface. We had a few departments that held back from wanting to be involved with it because they didn't think it would be essential. That's not helpful because when people get used to using it uh, for reference or for the ability to communicate, they expect it to be for all of your departments. So even if it's hardly used and people rarely touch on it, it should be available for all departments. So don't go department by department, either go your whole entity or don't do it.
Cool. There was an implementation question on how much of the experience is out of the box. So I will say the technology, there's no custom development needed, right, for any of the implementations. Now you can configure things. You can configure what knowledge sources to read from. You can maybe configure that initial landing. Kind of in Ephraim's case, he had open a ticket front and center. Maybe in Dublin's case, it might be more answering a question and then going. So you can tweak and rework the experience, but it's all configuration that's usually done in a matter of weeks. It's not a long development cycle. By the way, all of that is already part of the subscription. So post implementation, I know both of your teams are super engaged. This is kind of how do we make it better over time. By the way, this is the point that Jackie was just making. If this is where the world is going, if you want to do it sooner because you will learn from it. You will launch a version 2, a version 3. I've seen every one of our hundreds of clients go through that journey. It is, you might launch and realize, hey, I need more knowledge in this area, or maybe there's some additional integrations that we can build in over time. So there's lots of opportunities, but some of the ones that I've seen are around phasing the launches. So getting something out there and then kind of iterating through it to deliver more capabilities over time. Um, Gathering, monitoring kind of what's going on with the bot. This is really important. We help with it is to just look at, is it able to answer all the questions? Where was it not able to answer things? So just making improvements based on that type of feedback. and then working closely to have a roadmap or stream of things that we can do together to make it better. I know Ephraim, Jackie, I'll let you talk about any details around this or any other suggestions you would have on what to do after you've launched, or how to keep track of things and so on.
Well, for us, we've had this available since earlier this year, and we haven't really pushed advertising of it because we wanted to see how it interacted and see if there was any improvements that needed to be made on our end as far as building the knowledge base and accessibility. So this fall, we're going to start, it's going to be included, on our email signatures and on our voicemail recordings, that you can always access the chatbot 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because if people don't know it's there, they're not going to use it, and you're not going to be getting all from it that you can. So just making sure that people are aware that it's available to them, and staying up on top of your training knowledge base is really important. And sometimes in my case, I have to remind other departments to do so. It kind of falls off of their mind, just because our customers probably utilize it the most in Parks and Community Services. So the bot's only going to be as effective as you put time and effort into training it and making it. But if you do all that in the initial setup and you're proactive about it, it really is a helpful tool. So
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that.
Very cool. Yeah, and our intention here is to make resources available that help keep an eye on how it's going for you and make it better over time. Also listen to kind of what you would like to see, right? So explainability, as I was talking about, is an idea that came about from that. People wanted to know where the answers were coming from. Someone had a question on language model. The idea of we're a multi-LLM system. We interact with all the leading language models out there under the cover, all configurable, depending on the use cases that Ephraim and Jackie have probably lend themselves to two different models, because when you're on a public website, you want fast responses. When you're on an internal use case, you probably want more reasoning involved because someone might be trying to troubleshoot an IT support issue. So depending on the use case, the language model might be selected, but the intention is all of that is configurable. It's something we keep an eye on ongoing. So if OpenAI or Anthropic releases something new, we look at it. We obviously are always optimizing our own retrieval augmented model. So there's lots of things that we listen to your feedback or what's going on, and then come back and either add it to the product roadmap or plan a next phase with you. One of the few things, for example, we're looking at right now is how does voice come into all of this, right? Maybe in a few months. How can we use AI to look at the tickets that are coming into IT or resident support and figure out, hey, frame the problem in reverse to say, what of this could have been automated had we put in the right integration or the right answer or the right workflow in the system. So there's lots of opportunities to keep going deeper into the stack, looking at how to create resolution plans in the IT support world, or how to help people draft better communication using generative AI. So embedding all of these AI capabilities really deep into a supervisor or an agent's workflow is something that mostly comes from how you use the product, how you tell us what you would like to see. It's a very active, living, breathing space. Lots of opportunity to continue to innovate. And I actually just did a session on our product roadmap earlier today, and it's a very exciting space. There's going to be a lot more coming. Even so, post-launch, it's not a product that you launch and then you say, "Yep, I'm never going to look at it again for till my kids go to college," or whatever your next milestone in life is, right? You launch it and then you think about, hey, maybe it was answering 10% questions on month one. How do I make it go to 30% in month three, right? I think that is really the journey here, and the cool part is it's easy. You add better knowledge, you change the experience, and it evolves. With that, I think we both talked a little bit about it, but any last kind of thoughts? Ephraim, you talked about going to finance. Jack, you talked about some additional departments. Any thoughts on where you want to go with this, or what you would like to see that you would share with your peer groups here?
I think kind of sky's the limit with generative AI. Um, I'm I would like to see some kind of a product, or maybe you guys are thinking could type in, I don't know, an announcement or a statement, and then you have an avatar that pops up and actually speaks that that announcement for you. That would be kind of cool, but I don't know if you guys are thinking about that or not. But um, so that's where I'm thinking. Because I would like to go out into training videos, and instead of having someone sit in front of a camera or getting something off YouTube, we could kind of like bake that in house and just have an avatar that actually does that speaking for us in training. So
Thank you for that suggestion. We already do notifications. We already do help with communication, certainly making it more interactive. Sounds like a very reasonable thing to look at. Could you also talk about how you went about internally engaging your other stakeholders from various departments? How did that come about? And and I know you're looking to expand to some other departments. How's that? Did that come about organically? Did people look at it and wanted to see how they can use it? How did it happen?
um, it was kind of organic because they saw the help desk, and they were looking at some other products to help them with knowledge bases to put out to their employees in the department. So I was like, hey, why don't we engage Resolve? Because if they're doing the help desk portion of it, then we could probably have them expand that into finance or some of the other departments that might have the same needs, um, and then just keep it all in one house. So it was organic, and it's actually catching on. It's kind of nice. It's nice to see people are using the product you put out. So
That's good. Thank you, Jackie. Any thoughts on your future plans and how you see this evolving over the coming months or year?
I didn't, but I think Ephraim's idea is great. I think it's really cool. So, I didn't necessarily. I mean, we're constantly talking about it in my department specifically. We train upwards of 200 staff, part-time staff a year, depending on the season, which is incredibly labor intensive. And we were just discussing that we needed some type of knowledge base to meet Gen Z where they're at, because this isn't a generation that's taking in training through forms and binders and stuff the way that previous generations have, and that we're going to have to start meeting them with short form video in order to get an efficient and repetitive process for some of our training. So we were just discussing things like, do we put it on YouTube? Do we make a TikTok account for it? Like how is it that we get these like 30 to 45-second short training videos to get our part-time staff, which typically is Gen Z, Gen Alpha, to get them up to date, and so that they have an area that they can go back and reference at a later time if they ever run into a circumstance that they don't necessarily remember. So if that's something that we can implement with through Resolve, that would be amazing, because I don't like the idea of putting our all of our training on a YouTube station, and it would I also don't like the idea of it being tied to a laptop or a desktop. Like, they need to be able to access it on their phones. So yeah, I mean, Ephraim, that's a fantastic idea. So
That sounds great. We're doing product discovery on the calls. I think it's wonderful. By the way, as parent of two teenage kids, I can completely relate to it, right? That's the format. It works.
gotta stop fighting them. Just meet them where they are.
yeah,
That's right. That's right. No one has the attention to go read a 500-page employee handbook to figure out what they need to do.
Right.
Sounds great. No, I think this is wonderful. As said, you're welcome to. If there's any more questions, we can talk about them now. Feel free to reach out to our panel here. And Ephraim and Jackie are your peer group for people in the audience. Feel free to reach out to them and ask questions. I presume that they will be willing to share their input. You can always reach out to us if you had a specific technology or pricing, or want to see how this works in your environment, or get a demo or a proof of concept, where our team's always willing and happy to assist with that. And we would love to hear more from your discussion. But I think in the discussion today, we touched upon what was the vision, what was the problem, how did we go about selecting a product, how did we and some of the implementation experiences and what to do post-implementation. So we kind of touched upon the entire life cycle of generative AI. Generative AI, believe it or not, as most people believe it, came with ChatGPT about 18 months ago. And I think I, in my career, have not seen a technology that moved this fast in less than 2 years. And as both our panelists said, this is really the start of the journey. There's a lot more to do in the coming months, coming years. So the sooner you start, the more experience, the more benefit you will reap from it. So, any last comments, Jackie or Ephraim, before we wrap up the conversation?
Embrace AI. That's
Yeah.
all I can say. It's there's a lot of people that you talk to, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, it's scary. It's really scary that this thing is able to answer me the way it does." And it's kind of like, just embrace it. It's a tool. It's something that's going to make your life easier. So just embrace it, use it, and then you have more time to go off and do whatever you want. So
Sounds like a
Agreed.
plan. Sorry, Jackie.
I just said I agree with Ephraim.
Embrace AI. I think that is the message in the call, and I think that's a wonderful message to take away. And it's not hard and it's not expensive. I think that's the only two things I will add. It's not complicated. I think you will hear a lot of mumbo jumbo and complexity being thrown around. The reality is, I think it's as easy or as complicated as any other reasonable technology you might have implemented. It's not very complex, fairly fast, and fairly affordable to get up and running. So with that, I will let everyone be, and thank you for attending our webinar. The recording should be available in case you want to share it with your peers who may or may not be able to attend. And as I said, we're available if you have any other questions on our collective experience here. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Ephraim, for making the time for this. Your partnership is highly appreciated and very valuable to us. So thank you both.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for